They literally want you to own nothing and pretend to be happy. It's no joke.
What can be put into the Constitution can slip away from you very quickly. And the greatest example going on right now before our very eyes is Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which they're just disappearing with a magic wand, as if it doesn't exist, even though it could not be clearer what it's stating. And so, they want to kick it to Congress. So it's going to be up to us on January 6, 2025, to tell the rampaging Trump mobs that he's disqualified. And then we need bodyguards for everybody in Civil War conditions, all because the 9 justices, not all of them, but these justices who have not many cases to look at every year, not that much work to do, a huge staff, great protection, simply do not want to do their job.
What do these...
Hey everyone, this is Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, and I want to do a quick update about a document that got passed by the United Nations this weekend called the Pact of the Future document. It's 2 parts, one on science and technology and one about the youth and future generations. It is quite egregious, and it was done by a procedure called the silence procedure, which makes it a pact. And if no one objected, it is automatically adopted and put into the record as being completely adopted. This is the World Health Organization's runaround, or end around. Since they were not able to get the World Health Organization treaty passed, they decided to take it to the General Assembly. And it is even more egregious than what the World Health Organization was wanting to get passed. Let me just read you something really quickly about what is inside of this pact that is now being accepted by 193 nations around the world and equally open-armed accepted by our current administration. It says that this is the power structure, fully digital and maximized for the control of the masses. Everyone will be expected to have a biometric digital ID that marks them not just as citizens of an individual country, but as a global citizen. So anytime you hear global citizen or anytime you hear sustainability, think that this is an egregious thing that's happening at the level of the World Health Organization and the United Nations. Anyone that has a dissonant opinion will be labeled as misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation and memory hold. Perpetrators for unapproved information will be fact-checked and punished by the system, which will be operated and enforced by artificial intelligence. Punishments will include being locked out of one's bank account, being unable to make certain purchases, unable to get on an airplane, on a subway, drive on public roads. This is the future, according to the world's self-appointed overlords at the United Nations. These are unelected bureaucrats that are making decisions about our country, our sovereignty around the world. Nothing could be more important at this point in time than to get prepared. Have water, food, digital access, flashlights, a way to communicate with family and friends. Now is really the time to get involved and get prepared, because this is what's coming. Our Congress is sitting on its hands. There was a press conference on the 17th about this, and no further action has been taken. So it's up to us to mobilize and to go forward, particularly with your local sheriffs, to get your constitutional sheriffs to say, this isn't going to be allowed in my county. Thank you very much. Take action. We've been talking about the onset of one world order, one world government, one world religion, one world money for a long time. Well, it's no longer coming. It's here.
King Charles has openly declared that the elites must launch a vast military-style campaign to combat climate change, while calling for nothing less than a complete rewiring of the global economy. He has even suggested that traditional farming practices and the livelihoods of countless farmers should be sacrificed in the name of sustainability. But it doesn't stop there. Charles has a deeply troubling history of associating with questionable figures, including his well-documented relationships with Jimmy Savile and Lord Mountbatten, both of whom were later exposed as predatory paedophiles of the worst kind. And yet, Charles's supporters continue to bend over backwards to defend the indefensible. Now, the king has gone even further. He has declared the end of sovereignty as we know it, calling for the formation of a global government under the auspices of the World Economic Forum. Good luck defending him this time. At precisely 2:46 a.m. on December the 25th, an extraordinary message appeared on the official royal family website. This was no ordinary Christmas message. In this now deleted statement published hours before his official Christmas speech, King Charles III issued a stunning proclamation, a call for what he described as the necessary dismantling of sovereignty and the urgent creation of a global government. According to Charles, our shared humanity transcends borders and ideologies, and it's only by embracing a global framework, a true partnership of nations, as envisioned by the World Economic Forum's Great Reset, that we can address the profound challenges before us. The time has come to face an undeniable truth. The concept of absolute sovereignty, as we have long understood it, must evolve. Indeed, it must be dismantled for the good of humankind. Within hours, the message was wiped from the site without any explanation, leaving only fragments behind, screenshots captured by quick-thinking internet users who have since shared them far and wide. What was this about? Why would Charles advocate for something so controversial, and why was the press release so swiftly buried? Hours later, when Charles arrived at the Fitzrovia Chapel in London to deliver his Christmas speech, the world was presented with a watered-down version of his call for a one-world government and globalist techno-communism.
Do to others as you would have them do to you. Such values are universal, drawing together our Abrahamic family of religions and other belief systems across the Commonwealth and wider world. They remind us to imagine ourselves in the shoes of our neighbors and to seek their good as we would our own. So, on this Christmas Day, my heart and my thanks go to all who are serving one another, all who are caring for our common home, and all who see and seek the good of others, not least the friend we do not yet know.
The statement called for the necessary dismantling of sovereignty and urged the formation of a global government to combat what the king described as systematic threats to humanity. These remarks, disturbingly aligned with the World Economic Forum's Great Reset agenda, raise serious concerns about the future of national independence and individual freedoms. But should we be surprised? Charles has previously called for the elite to adopt a war footing and unleash a vast military-style campaign to coerce humanity into submitting to their agenda.
At this late stage, I can see no other way forward but to call for a Marshall-like plan for nature, people, and planet. With the planetary emergency so critical, with the permafrost melting in Siberia, for instance, producing dire effects on global warming, and with the Pantanal in Brazil being consumed by unprecedented numbers of fires, we could no longer go on like this, as if there was no tomorrow and no ultimate reckoning for our abuse of nature. So, what do we do? Without doubt, we must now put ourselves on a warlike footing, approaching our action from the perspective of a military-style campaign. That way, working together, we can combat this most grave and urgent challenge. If we have the resolve to shift our trajectory, we must start now by bringing forward our net zero target.
As Charles endorses military campaigns to crush individual liberty and enforce the will of the global elite, his denunciation of sovereignty is especially chilling. Sovereignty, the right of nations to govern themselves, is a cornerstone of Western civilization. For a monarch who represents national identity and heritage, to call for its erosion is both ironic and alarming. It challenges the very principles upon which modern nations are built. Does this signal the monarch aligning with the globalist elites, prioritizing centralized control over the will of individual nations?
The current pandemic has brought unimaginable devastation to people's lives, livelihoods, and national economies. At the same time, the green recovery represents an unprecedented opportunity to rethink and reset the ways in which we live and do business. Now, I've long believed that we need a shift in our economic model that places nature and the world's transition to net zero at the heart of how we operate, prioritizing the pursuit of sustainable, inclusive growth in the decades to come. Having been championing climate action now for the last, I suppose 40 years, I can tell you that this isn't a fight for the faint-hearted. By leveraging market forces and the immense resources of the private sector, there is hope that we can transform the situation. But I'm afraid we are literally at the last hour, and there is real urgency for action. We know now what we have to do to rescue the situation, rather than going on talking about it.
According to Charles, the time for action has come. It's time for military-style campaigns, for sweeping measures that silence opposition. It's time to crush dissent and end the pretense of democracy in the West. It's time to abandon the values of freedom and accountability in favour of centralised control. No wonder Charles was the man to introduce the Great Reset to humanity, the WF agenda that calls for a complete overhaul of economies and societies in line with the chilling goals of the globalist elite.
We need nothing short of a paradigm shift, one that inspires action at revolutionary levels and pace. We simply cannot waste any more time. The only limit is our willingness to act. And the time to act is now.
Is the deleted Christmas message, brazenly calling for a one-world government, a glimpse into a future shaped by the elite? And if so, why is it being hidden from the public? Stay with us as we connect the dots and expose why Charles III, the King of England, is working overtime to destroy his own country and serve the agenda of the global elite. Here's a hint: he's got more than a few skeletons in his closet. The globalists are trying to make us all poorer and destroy what's left of the economy. The Biden regime is following all of the WF diktats to the letter.